A very big thank you to you for joining us in this special edition of the program AIT Infotech Network, and I am Bayero Agabi. For participation, please reach us via text, email, Twitter, or Facebook. But for now, join us for issues and development that made news in the past week.
With over 100 million mobile subscribers in Nigeria and an increase in the demand for smartphones, more Nigerians access the internet on their mobile devices, and this makes the country a choice destination for broadband providers as it tries to provide the best user quality experience that has been a major challenge in the Nigerian telecoms industry. According to Wande Adelamo of Oxygen Network, there is need to set up a city-wide Wi-Fi network to provide 24 hours access to the internet beyond basic internet services.
They're trying to intimate the public as to the fact that Nigerians can now access broadband internet access at speeds that have never before been available, conveniently too for that matter. You don't need a modem, you don't need a dongle. But beyond that, Oxygen is also showcasing that Nigeria has the potential to do things. Nigeria has potential to rival the third world, the first world countries.
In a related development, Panaftel Wireless during the week launched its wireless service in Lagos, and the network is set to offer high availability, mobility, resilience to weather and adverse conditions. This makes it ideal for critical applications such as POS, ATMs, secured monitoring, and event live streaming. Speaking to newsmen in Lagos, the organization said it is offering next generation network based on popular technologies like IBUS, HCS CDMA, multi-carrier internet, local loop, and long-term evolution.
And it aims to do this by using a technology that has been proven to be robust in carrying data signals that are able to converge everything that you could possibly require of a network, which would include voice, it would include video, and it would include data in its pure form.
To Panaftel, internet speed of up to 2 megabytes per second is achievable for individuals, while corporate organizations can get data packages that provide customized access speeds like 4 megabytes per second up to 20 megabytes per second.
All these technologies run within what we call the sweet spot, the sweet spectrum. If you look at your spectrum band, so you have a technology that is resilient to things like line of sight, so you don't really have to be sitting close to a base station or pointing directly to a base station to be able to get good access.
Just about a year ago, the Goodluck Jonathan administration created the Ministry of Communications Technology, headed by Omobola Johnson as the Honorable Minister. In this X-ray, we look at the impact and prospects of the city ministry. 1 year.
Well, hello, Africa. Well, hello, Africa. Tell me how you do, Africa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much
for having us. Okay, let's begin this way. Be that as it may, let me just ask, how smooth has it been for you riding through this 1 year?
I think the way to describe it, Bayero, is that it's been like a roller coaster. I mean, there's been some very good times and there have been some down times. But I think overall, I think that we've had a very good 1 year in terms of establishing the ministry and really determining where we want the ministry and the industry to go.
The kind of, let me say, the issues you have to go through, the stress you have to go through, like someone said in one of the stakeholders meeting, that the first minister who works in a public enterprise as like you are in a private organization, you come first and you close late and all of that. Even when you are invited to events and you come very early and all of those things. So how have you been able to cope, merging where you're coming from and working with the civil servant who are not accustomed to that kind of movement or work?
I think that there's definitely there's a big difference in culture between the private sector and the public sector. And I think what I have determined to do is to bring all the good things in that private sector culture into the public service. So things like, starting on time, ending on time, moving at a pace that is efficient and productive. But I think that really in the 1 year that I've been here, I do find that, people respond.
Okay.
They respond to that kind of culture.
So to what extent will you say you've been able to meet the mandate of the ministry in 1 year?
I think I would say not to a great extent,
Yes.
and that's simply because, look, our mandate is to leverage ICTs for national socio-economic development. I think that it's very difficult to accomplish that mandate. It's a very huge mandate in 1 year. And really, when you look at the fact that this is a new ministry, what we've done over this 1 year is really to, first of all, establish the ministry. And second of all, we've actually then thought through very carefully of the direction we want the ministry and the industry to go. So there's been a lot of engagement with stakeholders. As you know, the national ICT policy is being finalized. So we spent probably the first year doing a lot of the planning and the strategizing, in addition to some of the other things that we've done, but it's planning, strategizing, deciding what we're going to do. And I think that from this year onwards, you begin to see a lot of movement and deliverables.
Okay, you just mentioned the ICT policy. How far will it?
The ICT policy is done.
Okay.
We are going to the Federal Executive Council for final approval, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And then after that, it will be then a public document. And implementation commences. But that is not to say that we haven't been implementing, but implementation in earnest commences. Yes.
What is the major thing in your achievement, 1 year of achievement that you say, okay, the stakeholders, both within and outside, can say this is what we have been able to put together, and the benefits of the ministry to the yearnings to the nation.
Okay. I mean, that's a very good question. So, I did say that we spent this year doing a lot of planning and strategizing, but there are a number of things that we have achieved. First thing we've achieved is the fact we've brought ICT to the national agenda. It is now an important thing that we talk about, as important as power, roads, infrastructure, finance, all these things. That's the first thing we've accomplished. The second thing we've done is to very, very carefully identify what the issues are in the ICT industry and how we're going to address it. So let me just give you 1 or 2 examples. There are probably a number of big things that we've found out. First of all, local content. Yes, people are very proud of and we all are very proud of the evolution of the telecoms industry, and also the development of the IT industry, which has not been as successful really as telecoms, but there are various reasons for that. But what we've been able to establish is the fact that we need to increase the participation of Nigerians in the ICT industry. And I think bringing that to, again, national agenda level, we're doing something about it. And secondly, we've also brought the issue of broadband to the national agenda. So we have a policy for broadband in the ICT policy, and we're about to start developing a strategy and a roadmap for how we're going to increase broadband penetration in the country. So I would say,
do you wish to see a Nigerian Facebook Zuckerberg?
Definitely. And in all seriousness, I think that the last 1 year again has been spent meeting and engaging with people in this industry, and I see young people who are extremely innovative, who are very bold. They don't have any of the inhibitions that the adults have, and I see the kind of things that they're doing, and really all they need is a bit of support, whether it is in terms of mentoring, in terms of improving the quality of the software they're developing, in terms of funding which they need to develop these products. All of those things, I think that, and that's what we're working on doing right now. So do I see another Mark Zuckerberg? Yes, I do, definitely. Yes.
I asked the question because most of them I have also seen, very creative, as you said, but they usually don't have that platform to actually, come up to the level where they can actually exhibit their talents and innovations. And then again, the issue of what some people also call antitrust kind of behavior of the big telcos, who are actually supposed to provide the platform for those other guys to provide the ground on which they can actually level up. For instance, you have a young man who is very creative, and what he has to do is just a value-add service. but he needs that infrastructure, for instance, from Glo, from MTN, and the rest of it. But by the time he starts making money, or the crowd is coming to him, he's cut off. And those are challenges that some of the youth are having. And before you know it, the big operator is rebranding that same product and running it. Are there ways that they can get some protections?
I've actually met with the value-added services.
Yes.
I think they have an association. I've met with them, and I fully understand their problems. And you know, by the way, it goes right back to this local content agenda we're talking about. There's some things that we have to reserve for our local young software entrepreneurs, and those are the kind of things that we're talking about. These are people that think, use their intelligence, use their creativity. They come up with these solutions, and they must be allowed to roll these solutions out on the infrastructure so that they can actually begin to build businesses. Those are the kind of things we're talking about. So are we going to offer them protection? Not so much protection from competition, because they will compete against each other, but protection from being unfairly taken advantage of by whoever it is. Sometimes it's network operators, sometimes it's actually bigger Nigerian entrepreneurs who do that to them. And again, we've met with a number of these entrepreneurs who've told us what their problems are. So those are the kind of things that we are addressing to ensure that these people will, their innovation and their creativity will be rewarded going forward.
The IT policy, for those that reviewed it, said, the draft, said that it was more procurement driven than development driven. You agree with this?
Definitely not. And I was very surprised at that statement. You know, that the policy that was seen was basically it was more or less a harmonization of all the different policies. I don't think it's a procurement policy at all. I mean, when you look at what is in that policy, we've got local content development, we've got broadband, we've got the telecoms industry, we've got capacity building. I mean, none of those things, as far as I'm concerned, are about procurement. It's all about development. You know, so when I look at the focus areas of the policy and the policy intervention areas, I don't see any procurement in there, quite honestly. I see definitely a development of the IT industry.
So you're very sure that that policy can actually take the industry to the level we wish to see it?
100%.
Okay, please do help clarify this. It's an issue in the industry. So I always said that one of your agencies, or two of your agencies, they are government enterprise, Galaxy Backbone, and Natch Consult. Is Galaxy an agency of government? I mean, implementing the agency or government under your ministry, or a government enterprise for business?
I think, you know, there's a lot of confusion around Galaxy, and basically what we've done over the last year, again, in terms of strategizing and planning, is to very clearly articulate what those different agencies are supposed to do. So Galaxy Backbone, what it is the provider of infrastructure services for government MDAs. And the reason that is necessary is because we have, you know, 550 or so MDAs all over the country who all need IT services. What has been happening in the past is that each one of them is going out and procuring IT services. The standards are different, the quality is different, the pricing is different, and what needs to happen is that somebody needs to begin to aggregate some of these things. So we aggregate bandwidth, aggregate data centers, aggregate some of the applications. Now, all of those things are supervised or superintended over by Galaxy. But none of those things are actually done by Galaxy, because there's another issue that people have heard about, that Galaxy Backbone is crowding out the private sector. That couldn't be further from the truth. Galaxy has data centers. They were not built by Galaxy. Galaxy, you know, has fiber optic run into some of the MDAs. They were not, you know, the roads were not dug up and the fiber laid by Galaxy. Galaxy has, you know, we have collaboration tools. They were not written or developed by Galaxy. So a lot of that, I think it's a myth, and I think it's important to clarify the role of Galaxy for government.
Okay, so maybe the notion that Galaxy is actually, you know, an enterprise, you know, emasculating the private sector does not exist.
It doesn't exist, because Galaxy is a fairly small organization, and basically what it does is it contracts out quite a lot of the work that it does, even though there is a small technical team that does some of the simpler work and some of the conceptual thinking and the analysis and the design. But a lot of the implementation work is actually done by private sector.
Okay, so we move to another of your agency, a very big one at that, NCC, one of the most popular ones.
Yeah.
They've been, applauded for their regulatory, prowess and all that. But if you take a look at the market, you have the GSM operators, you have the internet service providers, and you also have the CDMA operators. As we speak, the CDMA operators are just gasping for breath. Some are dead and all of that. When you speak to them, they will tell that their death or their gradual, erosion is coming as a result of, imbalance in regulations coming from the NCC. But they're not protected. They're open up against the big operators. Are you aware of this?
I'm aware of this, but the reasons that are given, when you look at a market, you look at dominance and size. And so what has happened over time and is really that the GSM operators have dominated the CDMA operators. And really this is about a choice of technology. GSM technology in Nigeria has become the de facto mobile phone technology, and CDMA is almost like the poor cousin. But when you go to the US, CDMA is the main technology, and GSM is the poor relative, so to speak. So number one, that's a starting point. GSM is the technology that we have accepted and has almost become the de facto. Now, when you look at these CDMA companies, it is true they are gasping. They have less financial leverage than some of these companies, and we do recognize that. But we do what we are doing, and what has happened in the very recent past is that, like I said, these are small companies, and so therefore they cannot compete with the big GSM companies we're seeing. There's a need for a consolidation of the CDMA industry, and we're seeing that happening right now. An investor has recently bought 3 GSM companies, bringing them together. Hopefully, have a bigger company, more investments that can compete with the GSM companies, primarily on data. Because that's really where the next revolution is going to be. You can't really compete on voice anymore, but you can compete on data. And that's the way that we're seeing the CDMA industry going. Hopefully some kind of consolidation, and hopefully a refocusing from the voice market, which has been captured very well by the GSM companies, to a data market where there is still room for competition and room for the CDMA companies to grow.
Okay, so you see a future for the CDMA?
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good future.
It depends on finances. It depends on leverage. It depends on strategic focus. I think all of and these are independent company decisions. So there will be a good future if they look at the market again and decide on what they're going to focus on. You can't compete with the GSM companies on voice, and that's
historically, I think one of their major problems was that their licensing. Their license, structure in the beginning, they were licensed regionally, that couldn't allow them to actually bring in huge investment because you cannot invest beyond your license capacity. It was just very recently that the idea of universal licensing came up and all of that. Now they can expand. But before now, if you have a Starcoms, for instance, in Kano, the number will be different from that in Lagos and all of those things and all that. I think that's, to them, that licensing restriction was the reason why they couldn't expand before the GSM licenses came and all that. With this, do you think they need a special assistance to actually fast track their growth?
I think that it's looking at licensing issues that were, 10 years or so ago. I think let's forget about the past and let's focus on the future. How do we get these CDMA companies who, like you rightly said, are not doing that well or failing in many instances? How do we get them to begin to grow again?
Are you happy with internet quality of service?
As a subscriber, as a minister, no.
Because from our feelers from the industry, I think the internet quality of service, now that we're moving to data, is far more worse than the voice quality of service. But we have not seen your regulator, coming hard on the internet service provider than like they have done with the voice providers. How are you going to push them to this?
I think there are, I mean, you're right, there's a big problem with the speed of the internet that we have today, and also there's a big problem around the cost of that, of purchasing that capacity. But you know, it's an infrastructure problem at this point in time. Even the voice is an infrastructure problem. Where you get fast internet speeds is really where you have fiber optic, and to a certain extent, the more modern wireless technologies. And what is happening right now is that we're seeing investments, upgrades in the technology of the GSM companies, and also a big push towards putting out more fiber so that we can have better internet capacity. And really that's what we're focused on right now when we talk about a broadband policy and a broadband agenda, is to ensure that we have that infrastructure in place to give us the right quality of service that we need for internet capacity. Now, the other thing you need to also think about is that, and that's what we're working on, there are a number of bottlenecks, and I'm sure you probably know about them, Bayero, in terms of being able to lay out fiber and being able to put up base stations to support the growth and also the capacity that we need. And we've been working really, and that's what we've been doing over the last year, to remove those bottlenecks.
Mobile money, we know, is that of CBN, but the infrastructure driving it is that of telecoms, which is within your purview or your domain. We have seen the telcos also try to play in the mobile money service. Does the license, you know, allows them to carry to do mobile money service?
It doesn't. It doesn't. The license doesn't allow them, but there are mobile money companies that have been licensed by the CBN, and the GSM or the network operators will carry the traffic for mobile money. That's the way it's been done. Different from other countries, but that's the way it's been done in Nigeria.
But we have seen Glo mobile money services, MTN mobile money services. That is the brand that they carry and all that.
They may carry that brand, and they may co-brand with others. But from what I understand, the licenses that have been given for mobile money have been given by the CBN. CBN does not regulate the telecom sector, so the 14 or so mobile money operators have been licensed, and they will be regulated by CBN. Now, you need to understand the reason why. We have a lot of money outside circulation of the system, and one of the reasons, or the underlying reason for mobile money, is to bring much more of that money into the formal system. This issue of financial inclusion. So anybody that has a mobile phone has a bank account. We have 90-something million, mobile phone subscribers. We've got 20-something million people with bank accounts. If we have mobile money, or when as we have mobile money, more people come into the formal system, and there's a possibility that some of these mobile money companies will be holding deposits of several billions of naira when you aggregate them. And really and truly, when that happens, who should regulate that? Should it be a bank or should it be telecoms? And I think that's really why we're looking at the financial service industry regulating that. But clearly the traffic will be carried by the telecoms industry.
In 1 year as a minister in the first ICT ministry, what has been your major headache?
I think really it's the headache challenge. It's really more about the pace at which we've been able to move. We spent the first, I would say, 4 months or so just really having a ministry, the bifurcation between this ministry and the information and communication ministry, getting directors seconded, getting a permanent secretary deployed, and all of that. So I think it really has been the pace. And coming from the private sector, where things, as you alluded to earlier in the interview, where things do move a lot faster, I think that's probably been the greatest challenge. And of course, the capacity.
What's your relationship with the agencies?
Very cordial. I think that like I said, we had very good sessions when I came in, looking at what each agency was doing, and then we had to do some level of realignment to ensure that now that we have a new mandate, everybody's working towards the achievement of that mandate, and they know what their contributions are. So I would say that between the ministry and the agencies, the relationship is extremely cordial. We're working very well together.
So are they? These inter-agencies kind of relationship, do they have it?
They have it. And they have to have it, otherwise we will never be able to achieve our mandate. Because there are a lot of, like I said, this issue of convergence, there's so much overlap and interlinkages between the agencies, between Galaxy and NITSTA, between NITCOMSAT and Galaxy and NITSTA, NCC and everybody else. So there has to be, and we're beginning to reinforce that need for us to all work together to ensure that we get this mandate. And you must remember that this takes time, because all of these agencies were under different ministries and under different supervising authorities. So bringing them all together it has taken some time for us to begin to perform as a team. Exactly.
But some of them have said that the ministry is supposed to, focus on policy implementation, while the agencies, policy supervision for the ministry, while the agencies does policy implementation.
Absolutely.
Some have said that the ministry, is like trying to do policy implementation.
I don't agree with that, and let me give you some examples. Yes, it is true that some ideas have emanated from the ministry, but when those ideas have emanated from the ministry, we work very closely with the agencies. So I'll give you an example: the ICT incubation centers that we're about to launch. So the NISTA already had these software development centers that they were trying to work on. When I came into the ministry, we actually looked at that concept again. We basically restructured it a little bit because, given my experience in the private sector, given the network that I have outside of government, we saw a much more expedient way of implementing this. We set up a committee. NISTA was involved in that committee. We're moving into implementation. NISTA is at the forefront of that implementation. So yes, it is true, some ideas emanate from here, but we don't even have the capacity to implement, quite honestly, or the funding. So we can, even if we wanted to, we couldn't. A lot of that funding comes at the agency level. So we are working very, very closely with the agencies to implement.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, that is the show for the week. If you have any comment or suggestions for us, please send them to bayero@AITinfotechnetwork.com or bayero@yahoo.com, or better still, text the number on your screen. Until then, I remain yours sincerely, Bayero Agabi. Bye-bye.